Me as a jungler, whenever we are in game, I just have to think about pretty much everything. So you have to think about all the scenarios that can happen and take the minimum risk.
Circe coming in the team is new blood, and those young guys are coming with long teeth and they're ready to eat and to kill everything.
We are here at the gaming house and we are preparing for IEM Katowice. We usually talk before the scrim. We talk about what should we play today. We just decide what to play on the day and we practice until we are good.
At the moment, Unicorns of Love is in a really good shape. It was not forecasted like this for other people. They were expecting us middle to bottom tier of the championship.
The reason why we are succeeding right now is because we are hardworking and everybody wants to win. We share this passion of being the first place. We just play to get better and prove that we are good. The best thing about being a pro player is that you do what you love every day. You are living the dream and you are making a career out of this. The way I ended up here, I met Vizicaci in solo queue. We played together and after IEM Oakland, they just chose me. When I came to the game house, everyone was talking to me and they were nice and I already felt like I belong in the team. And I think that's why we are succeeding, because everyone is helping each other to grow.
I think we genuinely take care of our people because we are deeply rooted in the team. So Shippy is the founder of the team and the coach at the same time. And before being a coach, he was also the manager. So it's his life. And everything he's gonna do for it, he means it. Like, it's not like a job where you take a risk and maybe if it fails, well, you just need to find another job. No, that's his life, that's my life, and same for the players. So everything we do, we put all our heart in it, and we want our players to be happy so they can be successful. So when we go to a player and say, we want you to be happy, it's not just business. We really want you to be happy because we really believe that's gonna make you successful.
When I think about IEM Katowice, I think only about winning, as Unicorns of Love has a history of performing well. It's a great feeling when you are playing in front of all those people and you are making a play and everyone is cheering for you, and it's really good.
Yeah, we're family, we are friends, so it's really fun for us to go on those events. It's really fun for us to travel, to sleep at the hotel, to meet fans, to meet people, to be on stage and to enjoy it. And we have a lot of fun doing that, and I strongly believe if you have fun at what you're doing, you're going to be successful.
I can only think of the great atmosphere, the goosebumps. Going to the World Championship is a big deal for me, and I can't wait to play there.
And of course, that was the Unicorns of Love, and some great words there from you, Ramon, in, of course, that clip. Great little way to learn a little bit more about just what it is like to be one of the Unicorns of Love. But now we're here, it's IEM, we're in the Spodek now. You guys are very much as you talk about fun being important, you're here to play. Your opponent, it's gonna be G2. And we know you guys have a history, you know. Tell us about that though. Is there a rivalry there? Is there a story in your relationship with G2 and you've gone back and forth over so many splits?
So, into the European LCS, G2 belongs to the Group A. We are in Group B. They are dominating Group A, and we faced them 2 weeks ago, and we lost. We lost 2-0. Maybe it should have been 2-1. Doesn't matter. We lost. They are good. They are scary good. And so we are coming today with, I hope, the right mindset. We worked a lot for it, and let's see how it's going to go.
How much does this change for you guys being here now, playing at this event as well? You were the victors at IEM Oakland. You know, you actually took down the Flash Wolves in the final of that tournament. Different time, of course, different teams and all that. But do you feel like you have an edge in experience when it comes into that, when you enter this arena against G2? I know they've got experience too, but what's different now between LCS and today?
I hope we have been able to capitalize on our loss against Flash Wolves 2 days ago, yesterday. We learned. They play different styles. They play from another region of the world. That was a solid loss. They are extremely good. We took the time to sit down, analyze, learn from it. We are back, we are stronger. Let's see how it goes against G2.
Fantastic. And of course, let's say you do make it. We're not going to get too ahead of ourselves, but if you do manage to make it past this match, You're going up against the Rocks Tigers. Now, you got to see them a little bit in the other group. What are your thoughts about potentially going up against them later on?
Honestly, we haven't even mentioned it. Like 100% of our energy right now is into beating G2 because we know it's going to be a challenge. We know they are really solid. If we make it this far, I'm going to be more than happy to sit down and spend the whole night tonight with Shippy and the guys trying to think a way to beat Rocks Tiger.
One step at a time, right? Any words for your fans, Ramon? I know you've got a beautiful brand in Unicorns of Love and you've got a very strong fan base. What would you like to say to them here?
Thank you everything. And for this incoming game, send us your energy, you know? Gentikama, I want everyone to raise their hand. We need you guys. We really need you to be G2. Guys, energy now. Yeah. Let's do it.
I'm feeling it, Ramon. I'm feeling the energy in here as well. And now it's time to get into the thick of things. To put this match under the microscope, let's now head over to our expert desk to bring us in.
Yes, this is an EU bonanza. It is G2 versus Unicorns of Love, but it is not the first time we've been here, and not the first time in recent memory either that we've been here, gents. This happened just last week. Where are you two, where are you in this matchup? Where do you think you're sort of lying in terms of predictions right now?
Starting with the predictions. It is fun how we have this EU versus EU match, NA caster, Korean caster, but we got the outside, I guess, opinion on it.
Impartial opinions, right?
Sure, relatively, I guess. It's an interesting one. You know, 9 days ago, they came in, you know, tops of both sides. Okay, this is the top of the table battle. And G2 really did shatter a lot of expectations in game one. And then Unicorns of Love had a very Unicorns of Love game two, you'd feel. And then the ending was the storybook stuff. Bizarre. And we've had some bizarre games this series as well. You know, I always, because I come from the LSK, I always think about the G2 styles, you know, they're very predictable, very manageable, very smartly put together style as the sustainable one, but expectations this tournament kind of been shattered. We've seen Unicorns in that match against Kongdu Monster, if anything, play it too safe, with a 53-minute grind out where they played very good macro, but arguably a little bit too slow. You look at G2, you know, the big stat coming into that match was G2 playing long games, Unicorns playing slow games. It feels like a lot of the scouting points for these teams are up in the air in the last 9 days, and specifically at this tournament.
Exactly, and that's why this matchup of EU versus EU is so interesting, because the expectations don't really match the scouting, the research that we do, the statistics from the teams coming into the tournament aren't really applying for what the play that we see, yet G2 versus the Unicorns of Love all-time is 11-1 in the favor of G2, so you naturally want to side with them, but by the notion of the tournament, you'd obviously put things and give Unicorns of Love a little bit more of doubt, or G2 a little bit more doubt for winning the matchup, just because, well, Unicorns have been playing quite well.
And you have to hesitate a bit with those stats, just because, look, it's been 3 splits where Unicorns and G2 have played. Unicorns have changed their roster consistently again and again. The smallest tweaks maybe this season, it feels like they're an improvement on what we saw at IEM Oakland, but still a new roster in many ways, still some young players like Xerxia who we were seeing in the video. It's interesting. I think game one, to me, will tell the biggest story. I think the winners of game one will win this series 2-0. I just can't see it being a 3-game series, because we've already kind of had a best of 3 from them 9 days ago, and it feels like a lot of that will flow into the scouting report and what comes out today.
I do feel like it would be a best of 3, just because that second game should have ended the ULCS. That should have been the Unicorns.
Sure.
Take.
So, let's look at Unicorns of Love first. They have a lot of history here at the Intel Extreme Masters. Oakland champions, obviously, they've had a history performing on the international...
I mean, think about their debut. It was before they got into the LCS being voted in, because people were really taken by the name, the brand, which has always been a strong thing. We saw Romain in the interview just a moment ago. This team has always had a bit about them, and as you're right, they've kind of had a love affair with Intel Extreme Masters, because they've always performed here to varying degrees, but certainly with the ultimate success last time they came.
Absolutely. So looking at their roster specifically, I mean, Xerxia himself probably hasn't had the best tournament, but other members from, you know, Unicorns of Love have looked like they are hitting levels that they should be.
It's Exile. I mean, this guy has been just going insanely well. His Victor play was really stellar, just trying to put the entire team on his back, and he is known to be the main carry of the Unicorns of Love, and he has really been proving it, and going up against Perks, who has had a very good tournament, obviously some blunders, but for the most part, just overall, a very solid performance. So the clash of these two mid laners, and we have seen mid be so important in this tournament, and just overall in most games, that the picks and bans should most likely revolve around these two.
I mean, Exile was MVP of that tournament at IEM Oakland, another breakout performance in that time on the international scale. He came in with a lot of hype. You know, Perks versus Exile is always going to be a hyped featured matchup in that game a couple of weeks ago. And game one especially, and in general, I felt like Perks kind of had his number. Game one was a very quick game. He got the Orianna into Ryze, did Perks, got the favorable matchups in both games, and that helped him out. I want to see what happens if Exile gets the favorable matchup, because that's kind of been denied from him the last few times they've met.
I think one of the other sort of unsung heroes that you sometimes see with Unicorns of Love is Vivasachi. He's been in that top lane. He has had maybe a little bit of a wobbly performance here at the Extreme Masters.
Unsung is kind of...
Unsung. This guy's getting praised because he is so aggressive.
He's Johnny come lately with the praise, maybe, because like lately people definitely recognize him and Hilla-san pretty prominently. And Chachi, he has his own style, very good at the Shen, which certainly is going to be contested. You know what my excitement is, Crumbs? You know, picks and bans are always fun. Is this going to be an EOLCS pick and ban, or is it going to be an IEM Katowice pick and ban? Because there's always tournament trends. There's always things where, okay, this is the pick that's working in this tournament. It rises in popularity compared to, say, scrims and the longer seasons. So we could see a hybrid. We could see one or the other. I'm not sure what we're going to get.
No, I'm led to believe that this could just be an IEM Katowice kind of pick and ban, just because these teams, they know each other so well that they can perhaps even afford to look forward to their next matchup, just because they know themselves so well that when they come to face the Rocks Tigers, they will have to adjust. They have been adjusting in the meantime to the other team, so being better prepared would help them in that regard.
So let's look at the other side of the table, G2, I almost said it.
Ocelot's watching.
I know, I've got to keep my tongue on trend. G2 then, these guys, who exactly in this lineup is really been performing and the one that needs to step up potentially going into this series?
That's a hard question. I mean, in general, we've seen some fluctuating performances from everyone, even the gold standard, Sven, for example, who's, you know, Sven and Mithy as a duo. Mithy's had a bit of a down season, but still been good. Sven kind of had a good season, and then that game one, especially against Flash Wolves, he got that 2v2 death, and it really cost them in terms of pressure. Perks has had a good games. You know, game one to game two in that Kongnu Monster series was night and day in terms of output. So we're just looking for consistency from them. On their day, if all these 5 players are firing, they should easily be the strongest team. I would argue at this tournament, although we came in not really knowing a lot about Flash Wars, and maybe that will be challenged, but at least on paper, this looked like it would be kind of a coronation for G2 after so many misfires.
I think the cool thing that G2 also has, when you talk about consistency, is a champion pool that is quite vivid.
Yes.
Support role particularly. Mithy bringing out 2 picks that you don't see a whole lot. The Soraka to kind of try to deal with what a LeBlanc could be, and then the Leona as well, into the Syndra, the Karma, and the Jhin, or I think it was Varus. And those kinds of picks that we haven't seen from the Unicorns of Love that can obviously put kind of the thought in the back of the Unicorns of Love head, maybe they will give the LeBlanc over to Exile. Hopefully not. I sincerely hope.
It extends the old storyline, though, because the Unicorns were the ones, especially in the jungle, who were innovating throughout EULCS, and now G2 innovating the support role. Everything's being flipped. The roles are being flipped, and you look at 11-1, you're like, okay, G2 must be G2, but this could easily be a series for the Unicorns of Love.
And I think when we talk about G2, you can't stray away from the topic of the fact that they brought on Weldon. Now, people who don't know Weldon, he was a big, you'd almost say psychological coach for TSM. You know, he helped them with their.
He was technically, I think he was technically head coach.
Head coach.
Of that tournament. Yeah.
But his speciality has always been in mindset and how to approach competitive settings in games. Well, G2 have brought him on. And it seems like he's trying to get them over this hurdle of the international performance barrier, because we've seen what they can do on an international level here at the IEM Katowice, but how much of an impact is he going to be having for them going into this?
I think it's hard to gauge the impact so far, because honestly, I don't want to give too much credit to G2 shedding away international success after defeating LCK's last team. So it's really tough to just say maybe the jitters are gone, and that's why this matchup is also closer, because G2, I think they still have to go in cautious, right? People have to still understand that they haven't found that success yet, and if you apply that international kind of filter to this tournament, they could potentially lose a game against, or lose the entire thing against.
And I like how you talk about the Kongnu Monster series, because I was cast in that series, you know, and celebrating G2's victory, you know, they won the series, and it's like, okay, but they beat the 10th place team, but it wasn't about who they beat, it was kind of about exercising their own demons, because you can't look past MSI and Worlds and shed them completely. They had such a consistent level of underperformance that just winning that series, regardless of opposition, told us something about G2, and now we get to follow their story. No more chances, single elimination all the way through. We got an inkling, and today we'll get more of a confirmation of where G2 are at.
It's a long road to recovery.
Long road to recovery. Well, we have OJ Borg on stage ready to introduce the teams. We are about to get underway. Take it away, my man.
Thank you very much. So it is time for Game 2 of this first day of the Intel Extreme Masters. Season 11, the Roadshow, has rolled into Katowice. The first game, it was a great three-way series. Now it's time for our second matchup. And remember, tomorrow is the semis and the grand finals. That trophy down there is up for grabs and the lion's share of $150,000. And the next match you're going to see here today is a repeat of a match that happened a week ago. As you just heard, the Unicorns of Love one hit away from maybe taking G2 down. So today, it's possibly all about revenge or holding them out and going through to take on the all-conquering Rocks Tigers in the first semi-final tomorrow. So, Katowice, are you ready for this? Oh yeah, let's get it on. I want to hear that one more time. Are you ready for this? I know you are, because this is the soul of esports down here in Katowice. Please welcome the teams for our second playoff match. They are G2 taking on the Unicorns of Love!
So there we have it, the two teams taking the stage here at IEM Katowice, G2 and Unicorns of Love. G2 have that head-to-head record, Crumbs. They have that 11-1 advantage, and if they put themselves in that sort of domestic mindset, I suppose you could put it, they have that complete domination factor.
And I think they should be able to. They're still in Europe. Sure, it's unfamiliar on this massive stage in Katowice, but it's still in Europe. They still don't have jet lag and other factors that you can draw upon and point at. This should just be to them a mental reset, sit at your computer and try and make it another EU LCS series, because man, they've done well in those.
And that's just so cool when you consider the fact that the Unicorns also have their own buff, right? You have the G2 like, okay, we're still in Europe, and then
the Europe buff
like,
versus the IEM buff.
Yeah, but we're in IEM, so which one is stronger? We have seen, however, IEM buff, M5, that's the one team that we have seen, or Gambit, that IEM buff has been incredibly powerful in the past.
Wouldn't it be exciting if they could channel the buff that Gambit had? Because their love affair with this tournament was
that's the great thing about this tournament. We've got such a long-standing history of League of Legends brilliance here. You know, you're going all the way back through the years, such prestigious moments. I mean, I think you probably have the most iconic League of Legends moment of all time, which is that XPK backdoor. I think it's the one that most people would recognize in terms of a moment that is known by everybody across the globe. So it's you've got this stage now, and we've always seen Unicorns pull out some cool things.
I mean, IEM moments are fun. I still remember TSM versus ESC ever. That has a special place in my heart, but I'm a savage like that. What can I say?
Oh, how about the GE Tigers coming in as the best team in the world, undefeated, get completely crushed by World
I was casting LPL back then. I was excited. I was a world elite man.
Well,
sorry.
Take your victories where you can.
We have the casters standing by. It's Pyrotechnics and VoDs now in the crowd, ready to chat to us about how it's feeling.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm looking forward to this matchup. VoDs, it seems like it was only a week ago we were talking
about these teams, and I guess here we are.
Yes, I'm extremely excited to see these two teams go up again once more, given that they're the two powerhouses of Europe. Both teams want to reassert themselves as the dominant team, and Unicorns, they're looking for a bit of revenge.
I think they definitely will want to have that. 2-0, it didn't look like a great result, but they honestly could have had Game 2 in the European LCS. We could have been looking at very different standings at the end of it all. But G2, the pressure has to be on a team like this. They had so much domestic dominance, and we saw them finally conquer their demons and take out the Kongdu monster just a couple of days ago. And honestly, if they want to stay alive in this tournament, charging down the Unicorns, not as easy as it sounds.
No, it certainly will not be. I think that we've seen many a time that both or all of the European teams have been struggling at this event, but now perhaps they're feeling a little bit more confident because it's just another week of the European LCS, right? Let's see if they can return to former glory and demonstrate that they are some of the best teams that Europe has to offer.
Yes, indeed. We'll see if they're able to take them out here. For Unicorns, I think the struggle, of course, is to kind of overcome what happened against the Flash Wolves, but they have familiarity as well, so it feels like they're playing on home turf. I think it could be anyone's match, in all honesty.
It certainly could be. I'm looking at that Graves pick in particular to see whether or not Trick gets his hands on it once again.
All right, well, that's what we're going to have to find out in the picks and bans. For now, we are going to send it back to our experts to get ready for that one.
Those two gents must be feeling a bit of deja vu after their EU LCS cast of the same game. Going towards draft phase, though, and I almost called you one of the casters. Crumbs, you talked so much about the importance of draft specifically here in terms of it seems to be deciding games in a lot of ways, getting that composition that you feel comfortable on. What is it you think that G2 need to go towards to get that comfort that we've seen them do well with?
I think the comfort really relies on what they learned against Kongdu, which is the lessons that we've learned from the tournament. You really need to make sure that your lanes have the ability to push early on. And it's not so much about snowballing the matchup early, it's about getting the control for you to set up yourself to succeed in the mid and late game. Because against a stronger opponent, you're not going to snowball early, but that control, that ability to have those objectives, the Dragons, go for those early tower dives, is paramount in succeeding here.
And the reason why this is a fun matchup is that the comfort for the Unicorns of Love is nothing like that. They love to go for the Ivan Katarina-esque comps, you know, the comps that can really pop off. Sure, they might not get a massive snowball early, but they'll get there in the mid-game and really have decisive initiation. If they can force a team fight, you know they will if the game's anywhere even. So because they have such different comfort zones and because their paths have kind of been G2-esque for Unicorns of Love and the opposite for the opposite team, knowing what to expect going into game one is very tricky to predict. So again, my prediction, the team that wins game one will ride their success, but knowing where they're coming in preparation-wise, I don't have a great idea.
So I think what's, I guess, really important here, and I think especially for some of the players on the G2 lineup is, when you come to prioritization, who are you prioritizing in? Who do you think you're going to say, I'm going to give you the responsibility this game? Or do you think they are more of a unit team?
I mean, the one thing I took away from that series, specifically the one against Kongdu, was looking at Trick, because when he got the Graves, and Graves has been a big pick this tournament, which sometimes been overlooked. Last series, for example, Graves was left open in multiple games and not selected. Trick on Graves is something that's very well-trodden territory. He has a very high win rate on that champion, over 20 games, I believe, in competitive play. But then you look at his Lee Sin, and that has always been traditionally a low pick rate champion for him, and he's struggled on it. So I think getting Trick on comfort, the double MVP of spring and summer split, is a big thing. So if he can get one of his picks, that will be a big boon for G2.
And Xerxes, on the contrast, has been a little bit underwhelming. His Kha'Zix was really not what you want to see out of a pick like that. The Ivern didn't see as much success as we really would have wanted to, but he has a tremendous champion pool, right? He's brought out the likes of Zac, the Rumble Jungles, the Warwicks. He does have plenty to offer, and I think that if they can really pinch the pool from Trick, they can get something good going.
Well, we are into Champions Select between G2 and Unicorns of Love for this first of this decider series. Remember, the loser goes home, the winner makes it to the semi-finals to play against Rox Tigers. G2 and Unicorns of Love, the bans coming out already. Camille actually seeing a ban this series. That's something else that we didn't see much of last series. And Tahm Kench, the final ban here for G2.
Tahm Kench blue side ban suggests that G2 want to reach and not give over Tahm Kench in the first round to the Unicorns of Love. Both these teams highly prioritizing the Tahm Kench, especially after the 7.3 nerfs toned down a lot of champions. So when it comes to safe blind picks, they're kind of running low, but there's a lot of power. Champions like Ryze, for example, big picks for both teams and expected lock-in for G2, unless...
Oh, that would be very risky, or first pick, considering you have not secured lanes
But
yet.
consider who it's against, right? The Unicorns love the Ivern. This would be as much a denial pick than a power pick for G2. Interesting. If they prioritize it over Ryze, that to me is the surprise.
Yeah, there's Ryze, Varus, Jace, there's the whole
true.
9 yards, and well, the Varus will be locked in, and that is just such an incredible pick for Sven. You know this guy can carry, and since so much is up, you really don't feel like you're getting the worst trade here.
They've prioritized a lot in terms of over Jace, like you said. You're over a lot of other picks too. So looks like there's going to be a response from Unicorns of Love. They're thinking about the Jhin here. Like you said, there is loads of picks available. Graves, Jace, a lot of power picks that we've started to see emerge here at IEM Katowice.
And because there's so many power picks, the Unicorns really don't feel tempted to take...
Oh, wow. You were just about to say right now, weren't you?
Oh dear.
All right. Well, I guess the Rengar is coming out again, which is a perfect opportunity for Trick to just do whatever he wants in the jungle early on. Not a single jungle champion has been removed, right? You got Kha'Zix, Elise, Graves, pretty much whatever you desire. You can secure this with a Rise right here, and you'd have such a tremendous comp already.
And it's so comfortable to pick the Graves because Rengar, more often than not, is in that farm to 6 that suits Graves, who has the AoE clear, who happily takes Raptors level 1 and other camps. G2 are just flashing champions that they know are available. Remember, Unicorns have last picks, so a lot of these champions that we're seeing thrown are champions that can be last pick. We saw already. They've been playing that, and we'll still see the
Believe it or
blue
not,
size rise.
flashing champions is in a way a mind
It's a
game.
mind game,
because
sure.
You let the opponent know, hey, we're thinking about this champion. Are you scared? What would happen if you pick this?
Looks like there's going to be a quick response here from Unicorns. I'd love to
And
lock in.
this is already something I asked for. I talked about how Perks had the better side of matchups last time we saw this match 9 days ago. Now we see the Orianna on the other foot. It's the same matchup, but Ori's very comfortable in
However, he does have the superior early jungler on his side, so he can definitely make this work if they go for something aggressive early on, especially if Exile is going to take that teleport on this Orianna mid lane, which would leave him very vulnerable.
So we've got just supports and top laners left to lock in here, which means our bans will start to limit them. It looks like Unicorns of Love are banning out the Misfortune, maybe hinting that you need to ban Zyra or Malzahar, or we're going to pick it.
Interesting. So fishing for a support maybe as that first pick and leaving top lane as a counter pick is certainly a possibility.
Well, they're trying to maybe see how far does Mithy's champion pool go.
Well, we're 3 down, right? Tom Kench,
We know
Misfortune.
it goes very far, so it feels perhaps a little bit wasteful considering that he has Soraka, he has Leona, and most likely has more tricks up his sleeve.
Well, he's opted into it. We're opting into a very pinched support pool. Misfortune, Malzahar, the first 2 bans of the second round. The team's still looking for top laners. Something like a Maokai could certainly be the first pick on red side, but we know that Expect plays Gangplank, so it feels like, again, the levels upon levels of continuing to ban support leaves things kind of in disarray.
And the extra level of Zyra comes through, which would mean that that composition from G2, had they have Zyra, would just be very difficult to deal with the poke and the
And at some point, we're coming to the point where it's like, okay, name 3 supports that are in the meta right now, because we're very, very far down.
I mean, Hillisang can always pick out Thresh, right? That's something that we've known him for. Not anymore, he can't, as that is gone as well. And now...
But now the question is, do you take the Maokai and maybe be left with the 9th or 10th best support pick? Or it seems like that's going to be confirmed here. Let's see what G2 go for, because especially if it's a laning-focused support, there's only going to be melee supports left at some level for Hillisang at the last pick.
We've seen a huge amount of Nautilus-Graves combo in that top lane, and that could be what we see.
It's a sick combo. You can definitely make this one work, and the Braum would be coming out here from Mithy. Really strong against the likes of Jhin. You can really block that. It also blocks Orianna's ball, which is tremendously important in a team fight, and it also denies Rengar having another squishy support to kill, because normally right now the meta favors mage supports. Your Braum, no longer a threat.
So I like the insta-lock tuck. I was actually going to bring up Trundle, given they had the Nautilus as well, potentially Shred. You don't often think about the melee support counter picks because we haven't seen melee supports in the meta since way back in summer last year. But Tariq's another champion that doesn't get comfortable laning phases unless it's the likes of these range of melee supports. So pretty happy time to lock in Tariq.
So quickly, before we go into this game, I want to give a shout out to our partner here at Intel Extreme Masters, The Score Esports. If you want to keep track of all of the live scores going on through LoL events here and throughout the world, they have a live score section on thescoreesports.com. So if you're out and about and want to keep up to date, go and check them out there. Has everything that you need for all of your esports needs. Now, before we get into game, I have to go for predictions. Crumbs?
Game 1, I'm going with G2 pushing top lane, even though better jungle matchup, and bot lane is Braum.
I'm going to keep it simple as well. They have the pushing lanes, they have the earlier power. I think G2 are going to take game 1.
Community are going G2 by a very slim margin at 54%. And I think now we are ready to hand over to our casters. It is Vedius and Pyrotechnics.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We're ready to get into game 1 for sure. This is going to be an explosive European best of 3. The rematch that both these teams have been waiting for, but they have had some struggles in this tournament so far. G2 bouncing back a little bit.
And we've got a European Rengar, Pyrotechnics.
Yes, we do.
There's been a bit of criticism towards Europe's Rengar play so far throughout this tournament. However, we have to do mention that Cersei's one win in this tournament was actually on Rengar.
That was a long game. 55 minutes against Kongdu Monster. I mean, I don't know how much of it was the Rengar, but I think you have a point. He definitely did exactly what he needs to do for the team starting in the early game. We'll see if he's able to do that against G2. It's always a tough task to go up against Trick. Let's see. We're about to hit the Rift. Everybody is getting ready for the European rematch. G2 Esports, Unicorns of Love, one of these teams will be heading to the semifinals.
Yes, they will. And hey, the bright side is we're guaranteed 2 European teams in the semifinals. HJK having already qualified earlier in the day after taking down HK Esports. One of these 2 teams has to join them, right? So for the European side of things, we shouldn't be that upset, right? We've at least gotten 2 European teams.
Starting with shouldn't be that upset. Yeah, I mean, it's been a tough task because I think a lot of people come into this tournament looking at the caliber of the LCS squads and thinking, okay, this should be a cakewalk, but not to be. There's been some tough challenges from the LMS side, Flash Wolves especially. Hong Kong Esports did give H2K a run for their money. And of course, the Unicorns of Love, they haven't found any wins outside of that Kongdu game, and they have to be finding their old confidence back, finding their playmaking ability that we saw from them in Europe.
Well, the last time that both G2 and UoL went up against each other, remember, G2 had that ridiculously clean game 1. We saw it yesterday, or not yesterday, the day before yesterday against Kongdu. So we know that G2 can do it. The real question is, will UoL be able to stop it this time around? Because in game 2, between G2 and the Unicorns of Love, we saw the Unicorns moving around the map, forcing plays with Hylissang's Tahm Kench, baiting G2 into playing their style, and they ended up falling short. It was the Unicorns that were always coming out ahead in these skirmishes, getting good map controls, but then just kind of turned into a fiesta, right? We saw a lot of
There were throws left and right, yeah.
It was like, there was this great comment that I read where it was just like, no, I will throw, and then UoL goes, no, I will throw, and then G2 goes, no, I will throw. And it all came down to that final end game play, which was right next to the Nexus. One more hit would have netted the win for the Unicorns of Love. And I believe that we should have gone to a game 3, but just a slight fault in the execution resulted in Unicorns of Love not quite being able to net us that final 3-game series.
Yeah, definitely the case, and it was seeming to fall short of the expectations. I think this time the Unicorns are definitely going to be learning their lesson. We had a slight delayed start, but we'll be heading back in the game very quickly. Unicorns of Love, you have to think they come into the entire tournament preparing for this potential matchup against G2 Esports. And G2, they're not shy to the Unicorns' tricks. This one is going to be explosive as we finally get on to Summoner's Rift.
This will be a good one. Should be a good one.
Absolutely.
2 of the best teams in Europe going up against one another. Once again, G2 looks like they're setting up for a potential invade into Unicorns.
Oh, they're pinging the brush. This could be danger. 5v5. Oh, good Brown Q to start things off. They get a double dazzle. Flashing forward, it's Expect. We got the level 1 party. It's going to be Exile Card blown up for first blood. Shy of a minute.
G2 already with the aggression. They're not done yet.
They might get rid of Chachi, and they do. Expect throws the anchor right into his face. That is a hell of a way to start the game. What a statement from G2.
G2-0 right off the bat, getting themselves 2 very quick kills. One onto Perks, one onto Expect. You couldn't ask for much more.
Unicorns seemed like they were caught with their pants down. They might have been ready in the brush, but all of a sudden, Mythy, the Winter's Bite came in, and it was lights out for a couple of Unicorns. Starting things off, you cannot ask for a better gold infusion. Expect and Perks having that gold already.
Look at this, Perks. He's now completed his tier on his first back. That is going to be so good for the Rise in terms of his scaling. We talked about that the last time G2 and Unicorns of Love went up against each other in game 1, it was G2 that had a clean start to that series, and they're looking to repeat the same thing.
But they're making the ballsy plays too. You have to give them credit. This is the kind of thing that they said they weren't really going to opt for. Early on trickery or making the big outplays. Instead, they just march 5 members strong into the Unicorns jungle. This shows they are not afraid to tango with this team.
G2. You heard the analyst discussing how they have the pushing lanes in the top, in the bottom as well, thanks to the virus. Rise getting pushed back a little bit, but the fact that he's already completed his day, he's not going to be caring about that. He doesn't have to look for an early back anymore, and he might even look to go aggressive.
Oh yeah, Perks already starting to push, getting that tier stacking going, and I like what you're talking about the compositions right now. They have the scaling Rise, they have the Graves that gets better as game goes on, and in Trick's hands, it's always deadly. It seems like there's just so much power in this G2 lineup.
Now, while Perks didn't have the best Rise game against the Kongdu Monsters, he was going up against the LeBlanc, and he did publicly announce that people should not shop in the middle of the lane, but he's definitely learned from his mistakes. Meanwhile, moving to the rest of the map, you can already see that G2 putting a lot of pressure down in the bottom lane, utilizing this brawl. Now, Mithy has brought this out quite a few times, actually, and has had some pretty good success with it. It is his go-to melee support. It has a lot of great disengage tools, and it's fantastic for peeling champions like the Varus, who can struggle against someone like a Rengar and a Maokai, who are just trying to dive onto you in the middle of these big fights.
Yep, good counter-engage potential, and when the support pool is drained as deep as it was in this pick and ban phase, it's a comfort thing to fall back on. Hylissang showing the Taric. Meanwhile, back to the mid, Exile's getting chunked out by Perks yet again. This could be a rough one for the Orianna. Usually, you can play very safe, but given over the first blood gold, Perks is having a ball to start things off. He's going to go back for some item buys.
Now, Ocean Dragon is the one on the board. I wouldn't be surprised if G2 look to get a little bit of vision control, like invest priority onto getting that Scuttle Crab, pushing the vision line up in towards Unicorn's bottom half of the map, just so you can better set up for that early objective. If you can get it, it's extremely valuable early on into the game. But it also just helps, given that how much pushing power G2 have in the bottom, as well as they're starting to stack up in the mid. So that's likely to be the first objective that G2 try to prioritize.
Would expect to see that one. We talked about the last time these two teams met, who would be the one enforcing their style, their play preference on the game. And for game number 1, it was of course G2, and then game 2 got a little bit out of hand. But for Unicorns of Love, it seems like with the composition they have, they definitely need to make a few plays. We're looking at this Rengar. What can Xerxes do on it this time around? They picked it for a reason. He's just going to put a ward in for now and looking for Scuttle Vision.
The fascinating thing about the Unicorns is when you look at their performance throughout the European LCS, it's very much been about getting to that mid and late game, right? They don't really do much in the early game. They're not a hyper-proactive team in terms of snowballing their laners or trying to get an early advantage that they run away with. They're very much about, let's just play solid laning phase, let's just do what we can to go even, and then once we get to the mid and late, that's where we try and force plays. But what we've seen a lot throughout this tournament is that Unicorns, if they fall behind in the early game, they just struggle to know what to do. They don't really find ways of coming back into the game. And I think that when we look at their series against the Flash Wolves in particular, they really struggled when they were put in such an early deficit. Now what I'd like to see from G2 is push this advantage, given that Unicorns haven't demonstrated a good tendency to come back when they are put behind early.
Yeah, expecting G2 to make those plays a little earlier on. Gonna have to contend with Xerxes inside of their jungle. Meanwhile, back down bot, Hylissang and Samix have pushed in to get a dazzle, and Mithy is gonna intercept the deadly flourish. It's a battle of poke here. Hylissang taking a little low, but back within the safety of his minion line. Unicorns are that team that will try to make the big play. These two AD carries definitely had some big numbers over the course of the European LCS so far. In fact, both of them 1 and 2 in the way they get their CS differential, usually dominating those opponents. Xerxes gonna be walking on a ward, spotted immediately as he is inside of his own jungle. G2 had gotten deep placement down.
Right now, Trick just investing a lot of time into farming through the jungle. The big thing for me is identifying the differences between Trick and someone like Karsa, right? Because when we look back at his Graves game going into the Unicorns of Love, it was Karsa that was actually making life so difficult for the Unicorns. And Trick, he has the ability to output that same kind of pressure. He could look to just either put a lot of pressure up top, you have a pushing lane up there, you can look to help set up a dive down bottom, but the fact that his priority is on farming, I feel like is a part of the reason as to why G2 have such a slow early laning phase. They're very much about scaling, very similar to G2 in the sense that they play more towards the macro game and focus on objectives, but they don't do a huge amount in the early part of the game.
Yeah, and different to the Unicorns, they don't even tend to always fight for all of them. They see if they can out-rotate and grab objectives. It has been a different G2, though, in this tournament so far in their wins. We've seen them against Kongdu Monster make some aggressive plays, try to get involved when they maybe are less certain. But of course, Unicorns, this is a team that they know well, and honestly, they did beat them down 1 game out of 2. The second one managed to come back. Let's see if they can do it again. Tier now picked up for Sven as he backs. Be a lot of stacking, a lot of time. We could be in for a long one, Vedius.
You would expect that from a G2 game. On average, they are fairly long in terms of their games throughout the regular season, and when we think back throughout the tournament, there have actually been a surprisingly large number of games. Unicorns with a 55-minute game against Kongdu Monsters.
Yeah, that was wacky.
It was a little wacky, definitely not the Unicorns' playstyle. Their first real proactive move was about 45 minutes into the game. But for the time being, pressure now slowly starting to be exerted from G2. They realize that enemy bottom lane has backed away, so Mithy can move into the enemy jungle with his jungler, try and get some deep vision down.
There goes.
Go for a pick.
Oh, Trick's gonna step forward. Xerxes is gonna sidestep, and Mithy tags right back in. Flashing forward is Perks, and Mithy claims the kill secure. Samix has to flash out as he gets exhausted. Hylissang joining the party, but Mythi goes forward. They are not shy of trying to go for these big flashy plays, but Hylissang gets a big stun off. All of the same, Samix is taken low, put in Rune Prison, but they can't put him 6 feet under. Teleport gets canceled. G2 realize they might have pushed too deep. You can even see Exile making his way down bot. This could be dangerous. Harry for G2 right now. They overcommit hard. They don't get punished for it just yet.
But Exile, he realizes he cannot go for the collapse. G2 can walk away happy after the kill that they were able to just pick themselves up. Bit of a mistake from Xerxes, given that it looks like he didn't respect the fact that G2 were making their way into the bottom half of the jungle. He used his leap onto a minion, and there was no way he was going to be able to get out of that, right? 1 versus 3. Very easy collapse to the side of G2. And you can just see, this is the mistake from Xerxes. He should have noticed that the ward was there. He doesn't respect the fact that all 3 members are on the other side of the wall. He ends up dropping. You have to praise Hylissang for his ability to disengage from this fight though, because he gets a fantastic 3-man stun off, which just completely stops the dive from G2, and Samix is able to get away with his life.
That was damn close though, and they needed to spend the teleport from Zizachachi to deter G2 from doing it again. All the same, they do get the push back on. G2, now with 3 kills, they put 1 more on Xerxes. We're 9 minutes into this game, and that gold is showing 1,500. Xerxes heading his way up top, just looking for the Krug camp, but he hasn't really been as active on the map as we've seen Trick has been invading, moving around with the help of the rest of his carries. A lot of vision in this top side as well. Let's see what happens down bottom. Sven and Mythi pushing in the wave there, getting dangerously close to first brick.
Thing is, if you're the Unicorns, you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place right now because you know that bottom tower is going to go down eventually. But if you try to make the rotation up top, Nautilus should have enough wave clear to be able to just clear out the waves, and then Trick just needs to make his way up. And Unicorns probably can't even trade a bot tower for a top tower, so they're struggling to know how to respond to the pressure coming out from G2 right now.
Yeah, this is exactly how G2 want to play their game. Winning lanes, 2 out of 3. At least keeping even in the mid. Yes, it's been an Orianna farm advantage, but that doesn't matter much. Trick's making up for that by the fact that he got the first blood gold. And there's Notion Dragon that G2 can take whenever they damn well please, although Unicorns have other plans. Xerxes steps forward just into the end of the line, backs away at a hair's breadth. Unicorns are massing towards this dragon right now. Are they going to try to contest it? Looks like it's not going to be started. They just wanted to get the vision clear.
I want to see more from Xerxes. Like, he's now level 7 on the Rengar. There are many overextended, you know, and I use the quote overextended loosely, but there are a lot of lanes where he has the opportunity to gain. And I feel like he's not utilizing it. This is something that we saw a lot from him in the Flash Wars when he was playing that Kha'Zix. He just didn't do much in the early game, and I feel like he needs to be a little bit more aggressive. There are windows of opportunity for him to capitalize on that he isn't taking advantage of, and it's just giving so much freedom for G2.
Yeah, he's late to the party yet again. They're going to bring Exile, see if they get a collapse round, but Perkz is already there. Hylissang taken low, but they stop the tower for now. Cosmic Radiance, and in comes Xerxes, finally looking to make the play. Shockwave pulls in. Trick and Mythi, they take 1 kill. Exile's locked up by the chains. Double TPs coming way late, but it ends up being a 1 for none, and they're both canceled up top.
This is the proactivity that I wanted to see from the Unicorns. Good rotation from both mid laners to be able to respond to the gank that was trying to happen, but it will be G2 coming out ahead, and they will likely be able to get this tier 1 turret.
Yeah, 1 for 1, I meant to say, but all the same, they get the turret off the back of the kill. They force the Unicorns back. Sven is able to continue to push this one. That just keeps on pushing that gold lead right now, G2's favor. Unicorns, you're right, they just have not been able to respond fast enough.
The thing is, the gank itself was good from Xerxes, but I just think it was a little bit too late. The damage had already been done to the tower. Trick, he'd already made his way down to guarantee that objective for G2. And they end up walking away with the objective and a kill. So I just think that the Unicorns have left. I feel like there's a lot of room for them to be more proactive in the early game that they're not taking advantage of. But now the map's opened up. Now what I expect them to do is move their bottom lane up to the top half of the map, send the Maokai down bot. And then the problem you have then is G2 have a free window to move towards that dragon.
And I think you really hit the nail on the head talking about Xerxes and how he's performed a little differently in this tournament compared to what we normally see him from in the LCS, from him I should say. He is very proactive when he plays, and he's an innovator, you know, really rocking on that Ivern domestically, but you have to remember, he is a rookie player coming into the European LCS now on a big international stage. Seems like he might be feeling the pressure a bit because he just hasn't had the same impact.
I think that's a really interesting point because from having talked to the Unicorn players and management, I think that when you play in the European LCS and you're so dominant, it's very easy for a rookie to get, not complacent, but, you know, just like have a lot of confidence, right? And then you come to an international tournament, you go against an experienced player in the form of Karsa, and then you start to realize the gap between you and your opponents. But might not have time for that as you look in the mid lane.
All right. Unicorn stacking pretty heavy. They're looking to get the stun off on Perks. Flashing forward, Hylissang does it. Shockwave pulls in both. The curtain call is open. Realm Warp. I don't know if Perks is going to be able to take it. He does. Intercepted shots from Mythy there. Perks is going to eke away with his life.
Beautiful escape from Perks, getting out with a hair's breadth. But the play is good enough from Unicorns of Love to force that mid laner back and get themselves that mid lane tower. Being a lot more proactive on the map and trying to force this play. But let's backtrack to that gank down bottom. You can see Xerxes, this is the initiation of the original gank. Exile gets to the lane a little bit sooner, but a really good exhaust from Mythy is what turns the fight around in their favor. Now we see another fight in mid.
Oh, just action stops, action starts. Hylissang gets the Radiance on himself just in time. And the collateral damage is mostly tanked. Oh, a flash forward. Hylissang is still going to live through it. Close calls, and the piercing arrow only nails Xerxes in the back. No kills off the back of it. 13 minutes. We are starting to see the action open up here.
Xerxes body blocking the projectile from Trick to keep his support alive. And overall, the Unicorns doing what they can to try and fight back, but it's still G2 being able to find some kind of objective back on the map. I like the fact that the Unicorns are trying to force more plays, though, early on into the game. They recognize that Perks is maybe a little bit out of position. They try to force the fight, and they end up with an objective overall. This is what they need to do. This is the difference from what we saw in their last matchup against each other, because in their game one, G2 just had full control of the map. They didn't even give Unicorns a window, but now Unicorns are forcing windows. They're trying to find ways to prevent G2 from just completely rolling over them.
Yep, grabbing themselves at least a tower off the back of it. They did concede the Ocean Dragon. It was a while before it happened, but the next one is going to be that Infernal Drake, so that'll be a much more valuable dragon for both G2 and Unicorns to try and fight over. The game could take a very different shape by the time that hits the Rift. 2,000 and some change is the gold advantage in G2's favor. They have map control, but you can see the Unicorns pushing out and trying to get some wards of their own. G2 taking a breather for just a second as they back for their item buys.
Exile currently sitting at 1 and 2. Not entirely his fault, but definitely a player worth talking about given that his performance throughout this tournament, like at IEM Oakland, he really stood out. He got MVP, he was a phenomenal individual, and throughout what we've seen of him so far, he's been playing extremely well. He's been a big facilitator in keeping Unicorns of Love alive, especially on that CAD arena. Even though it was late into the game was already lost, he managed to get that 2 versus 3 outplay, right? So this guy, for a rookie who's really come a long way since where he started, I think that he is a player that has really been able to demonstrate his growth.
Yeah, I think that's a big point. As that rookie last split, he really had a lot of struggles kind of making himself go big in the European LCS as they catch Sven on a shockwave, not enough to take him down to 0. Exile really has stepped up as a major, powerful force among European mid laners, and that's not a light statement.
And it's also nice to see that Perks has been also doing very well. The biggest criticism I have of him was that LeBlanc game, but other than that, he has been a very consistent performer, even in the G2 game versus the Flash Wolves, where everyone on G2 was getting destroyed. It was Perks that was actually holding his own against Maple. He was the solid lifeline that G2 had, but it just wasn't enough to net them anything back in that game. So it's nice to see the growth of both these individuals and how well they've been doing on this international stage.
Mm-hmm. Tough task, too. It has been some heavy competition, maybe not as expected by these European sides. Trick looking to go for a hunt down bottom side, but Bizachachi had the ward to spot him out, pinging. Where they had a lot of vision investment up towards top. Still kind of battle lines drawn in that river, as the dual laners had been up there duking it out for the last of the outer turrets. See?
I'm looking at all this vision coming out from the Unicorns right now, because the top half of the map is littered with red wards right now. And they have full control over the Scuttlecrab.
You want to have control over the Scuttlecrab, to be fair.
You do, but the Rift Herald,
yeah.
that's the bad.
Scuttlecrab's big brother.
Yes, that guy. I don't think that's going to be their main priority, but the fact that they're investing this much vision over to the top side of the map just shows that they want to make sure that Samix is all right, because you can see that Hylissang is spending a lot of time roaming around, and that means that G2's next primary objective is either for that mid-tier 1 or the top tier 1. And you have to invest all this vision around the top side to just make sure that G2 can't force those plays unaware, so that it allows time for Unicorns of Love to react.
Still, there's somewhat of a timer. You mentioned Samix, who's actually been quite far behind in the farm game. We haven't talked about it with the early action around the map because Sven has just been honestly beating him down here, and that's going to manifest itself in an earlier spike for an AD carry that already has an earlier spike than the Jhin. Could be rough for the Unicorns to fight in those conditions.
a lot of it does come from the laning phase where G2 just had the constant shove. Samix was forced to go into the bottom lane. They also lost that tier 1 tower, which meant that Samix was constantly on the back foot. And this is very similar to what we saw in their last Game 1 performance, when these two bottom lanes went up against one another. So Sven continuing to assert his dominance over Samix.
Very true. Unicorns, they are trying to assert vision on the map. Xerxes Hylissang hiding out in this brush, but Mithy's able to sniff it out. He's been honestly unafraid to face check because he knows that he can spot these Unicorns out early. The Dazzle's gonna come up and nail him. Meanwhile, in the mid, Perkz goes in onto Exile. Exhaust is spent. Shockwave lands, not enough damage, and he's gonna have to flash the anchor. Exile burning the summoner to get out of harm's way. Once again, Unicorns trying to collapse in mid, but they see the tree coming. Mile away, Samix going Ghostblade just to get out of there faster.
And while they will force Exile back to base, G2 can't really get much off the back of this. They've reclaimed vision control over the Rift Herald and the river, but they haven't been able to push that vision line any further. And I feel like that you need to move away from the top side of the map for G2 and actually start investing a lot more of your vision towards the bottom side, because the Dragon's going to be spawning in about a minute's time. This should be your next primary objective to pick up. And the fact that you've just been able to force the flash out of Orianna as well as the cleanse gives you a prime opportunity to really set up for that next objective.
Yep. I think we definitely answered the question so far of who was going to play whose style this time around. G2 have asserted themselves on this map much better than the Unicorns can match. Still plenty of time to turn that around, scaling on both sides. Nearly unkillable Maokai if we get into that late stages of the game, but G2, Perkz has been rolling on this rise ever since minute 1. 2-0-2 now. Still working on stacking up his tier, but he's had some early stacks of that Rod of Ages. Exile's just forced to check with the ball because there's so much vision on the G2 side. They're setting up for this Dragon. With 30 seconds to go, Unicorns are going to have to scramble if they want to contest it.
Especially when they have their bottom lane on the top side of the map trying to push. They might just have to concede the Dragon and try to get themselves a tier 1. Expect does have the TP and he has reasonable wave clear, but the reality is if you're the Unicorns of Love, you could try and force a fight, but Samix is a little bit behind Sven. Exile is a little bit behind Perkz because of how strong he is. And so I think if you're the Unicorns, maybe just oh, what am I surprised? Like, Unicorns, they have to fight. That's their nature,
they're going to
right?
go for it. They know, forget about it. We're going to head down towards bottom side. As the 20-minute marker passes, Baron hits the Rift, but all eyes are on the Dragon right now. Unicorns, they started off the Infernal, trying to zone with the Dazzle. Command Protect on, they just don't have the damage though. Samix is not able to get in here as Perkz is around the side. Dragon going low, can they might steal it away? No, it's gonna be taken by Xerxes, and they go invulnerable for a few seconds. Curtain Call opened up, it was all a bait after the fact, but Expect is around the backside. Exile going down, that's a double kill for Sven now, as they pick up a third. Mithy nearly gets taken down to 0, but all the same, a Dragon traded for 3 kills, 1 onto Trick. Shachi, though, will almost surely fall. Perkz flashes forward. Shachi blows the flash and doesn't clear the wall. He's in trouble, surrounded by G2 members. Might take him a while, but they'll shed the bark off the tree.
Beautiful team fight from both teams. Hylissang with the fantastic ultimate, but G2 with the better flanking. Yes, G2, they did lose the Dragon, but they come out ahead of the team fight, and they should be able to get the mid tower in exchange.
3-0-4 now on this rise. They got 2 kills for Sven's Varus. The carries are starting to roll forward, and yes, they don't have a minion wave, but they can definitely get a few pot shots off until it turns around. Unicorns are going to respawn. We're still early enough into it, but let's take a look at how that Dragon fight panned out again.
But keep your eyes on Hylissang, because look at how early he uses the ultimate, just as the shockwave. Oh no, that was Exile. He missed his own shockwave onto his own team. Expect gets a really good flank off, shutting down all 3 members of the Unicorns of Love. I wanted to praise the way in which G2 were able to play around the shockwave, but then it wasn't even their shockwave. They didn't even have to. So big misplay from the Unicorns of Love. Yes, they get the Dragon, but they end up losing the fight.
That's why it's such a crucial thing. Exile playing this Orianna, I mean, this is why it's champion so iconic, can make or break games. It's not at, absolute 100-0 damage yet, but you need to be able to place the ball in the right spot if you want to fight, especially when you expose yourself to a flank like they did there. Perkz around the side was cleaning house. And he's starting to roll forward now, not just him, Sven. The Edge of Night was completed. They're still stacking tiers on both those carries. And even Trick, he's got his Black Cleaver too. I mean, G2, this is sitting pretty for them right now with the 4,000 gold advantage.
Their next priority is to try and take down this mid turret. There's little that Exile can do to stop it because he has no flash, and against 4 members, it becomes very easy for G2 to dive that lane. So they just have to concede it. G2 continue to extend their gold lead, extend their map control, and they're going to do it once more by taking that tower in the top.
And Chachi can't even do enough to finish the tower off down bottom. Unicorns had hardly tickled it, and he just sends a few auto attacks that way as Expect tags in to clear the mini wave with Riptide. Easy peasy. Meanwhile, they had Perks up top, so G2, they've cleared all of the outer turrets. This should give them a lot more map control, and it's getting very close to Baron contesting time. A couple more minutes before you could think G2 might be confident enough to try and force a bait out here, but Unicorns, they've got to start finding something. We need to see bigger plays attempted from them. So far, that Dragon was honestly the only thing they were able to do for the last few minutes.
Thing is, if you're the Unicorns of Love, how many plays have we seen them try to force? They try to force one down bot, they're going to force one mid.
One more, they're looking to send the Rengar in for the shockwave. It gets blocked out by Mithy as the curtain call opened up. They pushed them back for just a second, but that's a few ultimates burned. Xerxes, Thrill the Hunt. Well, it wasn't very thrilling for him.
Now you see the power of this brawl, his ability to disengage from anything that the Unicorns of Love try to force. Make it very difficult for the Rengar to really get in. It was why we saw a lot of Malzahar being picked into Rengar, and this is one of the advantages that Braum does have.
Yeah, so many bans focused on Mithy this game, and he just says that's all right.
In general, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, Hillsang onto this Taric now. Vizichachi's gonna get double teamed as Perks was taking a party portal solo. It's exhaust on, Expect. They have the damage, they have the CC. He twisted, advances in, but Perks blows him up. 404 and a Maokai is not found.
Quick rotation from Perks down to the bottom lane, gets the shutdown onto Chachi, which means that there's nothing to stop G2 from putting the pressure onto this tier 2 tower, and they can just keep farming in the mid. But the Unicorns, do they try to engage on the mid?
This is when you start to see G2 really revving the engine right now. We've seen this formula before in the European LCS, 24, 25 minutes into the game, and they start blowing it wide open, but Unicorns have been just not moving fast enough around the map, and you can see the cluster towards mid, trying to save that tower, trying to clear the minions away. They do it, but at what cost at this point?
G2 have full control over the map. They have good vision around top side. They're able to make a quick rotation down to the bottom half. Usually you don't invest that many resources into trying to kill the tank, but G2, they saw a window, they took advantage of it, and they're gonna come out ahead in the objectives.
Yeah, ganking the teleport, you can't have anyone teleporting in to save the day. Pings now focusing on the Baron pit. As we hit 25 minutes, there will be another Infernal available. G2 counting their lucky stars this time around. Unicorns have ceded so much control on this map. You never can count this team out. However, things are not looking great for the Pink Power Ponies.
7,000 gold deficit at 25 minutes into the game will make things difficult for the Unicorns to win out on these fights. And one of the big things that G2 have been praised for is while they're not a team-fighting team in the sense that they try to force fights, when they get into these fights, they are exceptionally good. They know exactly how to properly position. Their target selection is often on point, and we saw a great example of that in the last Dragon play. You had Perks coming in from the river, you had Expect coming in from the top side. It was a three-pronged attack from all these different sides for G2, and they're able to easily get a collapse down onto the Unicorns. Now imagine this great team-fighting team with a 7,000 gold lead, right? It just becomes extremely difficult for Unicorns to find windows. But that's not to say that they are completely out.
Oh, they will force themselves through the cellar door if they have to.
I mean, you do have an Orianna and a Jhin. The ability to get those picks is still fantastic. If G2 incorrectly set up around the Baron, and hey, Europe are not... They're
not the cleanest Baron region,
exactly,
let's be honest.
Right? So there's always that window, and it only takes one overextension for UoL to force a fight.
There we go, curtain call's open. Chachi's teleport's gonna finish pretty soon, but it looks like they might have disengaged, flashing forward. They get a stun on, they look for Perks. The shockwave is just enough. They get a shutdown. Hillsang securing it, and the Cosmic Radiance comes down just in time. 2 quick kills, and Unicorns are eyeballing the Baron.
We talked about it, Pyro. You can never count the Unicorns out. If they see an opportunity, they will try and force the fight. Baron may be the objective that they go for, but it could be risky.
Yeah, but Chachi runs headlong into Expectant's Venom. Looks like they want to re-engage his Xerxes, forcing the immediate flash on his Venom the heal. He's right on top of him, sticking, but the shields are enough, and Xerxes is not going down. Samix gets the final shot. Trick is tanking right in the middle, and it's only Expect. Unicorns know they can clean house, and now it's Baron for real.
4 kills for 0 for the Unicorns of Love. They've got Baron in their eyes, and it is 26 minutes into the game. That gold lead is gonna mean nothing.
They have turned up the heat. All of a sudden, the switch flicks, and Unicorns, they know that they have the fight, and bada boom, they pick themselves up a big Baron. And this game is just turned on its head, Vedius.
My word, Unicorns. Whenever you think that they can't do anything, whenever you think that that is it, they always just find a way back into the game. But then you have to wonder, like, mad props to the Unicorns for being able to force that engage and get the collapse onto G2. But then, what were G2 doing? Why do they have 3 members sitting in the mid lane? Why are they not setting up proper vision? Why are they not respecting the engage potential? As Unicorns now set up for this Infernal Drake.
They turn their attention onto Expect, who is looking for the flank. Shockwave going to be used just to pull him in, and wow, they just make him not look tanky at all. Meanwhile, Chachi is not having any trouble with Perks and Mithy. G2 are going to be scattered to the winds. Exhaust is on. The Chains of Corruption used, but Perks is not getting out of there cleanly. He has been slippery all game, but slippery no more. A double kill to Xerxes, finding his first 2 of the game. And it's going to be a free dragon, or rather, a well-earned dragon for the Unicorns of Love.
They have turned the go switch on, and they are unrelenting with their aggression onto G2. They now have the Baron. They've just picked themselves up a second Infernal Drake, and they are looking to knock onto the doors of the base of G2.
They've still got that goal deficit, but as you mentioned, it doesn't mean a damn thing, Vedius. Unicorns have the momentum. Perks is 20 seconds away. Expect is still 10. This is going to be a hard hold for G2 right now, and the Unicorns, they are marching in with that massive lead. Curtain call open, Mithy tanking 1, Mithy tanking 2, the third flies the 4th, he goes unbreakable, but the base is broken open, and Unicorns of Love will walk away to spend that gold.
Great setup from the Unicorns, utilizing the ultimate from Samex to zone away the remaining members of G2 from that turret, but they don't get too greedy. They take the objective and they back off. But you can see here, 3 members of G2 just sitting in the mid lane. They have no tower to keep themselves alive. The teleport is far too late from Expect because the damage has already been done. With Perks being taken out of the fight very early on into the fight itself, they lose so much of their damage, and this allows Unicorns to move over to the Baron, but they don't engage on it. They just use it as a bait, immediately re-engage onto the rest of G2, and once Sven is gone, that's it. There's nothing left in the package of G2 to be able to fight back against the Unicorns. They get themselves the Baron, and they regain control of the game.
And this is the game sense, the macro sense of forcing fights, forcing teams to dance to your tune that we've expected from Unicorns in the first time these 2 teams matched up, that we expected from the Unicorns in this tournament. We're finally getting to see it, and man, it's beautiful. Outer tower gonna get fired down, but Perks is gonna try to make a play happen. He delivers Expect to the back line, but they're already invincible for a couple of seconds. Can the Unicorns hang tough right now? Samex is gonna get blown through, but he's not dead just yet. Finally, they will finish him off. Sven pierces him through with an arrow. Hillisang is gonna be next on the menu, but Mithy already taking low. Xerxes going in for the AD carry, instant exhaust. Perks takes down Exile. This fight is all chaotic all the time. Hillisang goes down, a double kill for Perks. Chachi hanging, we've seen this one before. And that is going to not end well for the tree. Triple kill, and Perks picks up one more.
And now it's G2 with the turnaround fight. They punish the Unicorns for being a little greedy. They only have 3 members down bottom side. Exile isn't there to provide support, and G2 are able to find a fight that goes in their favor. They're now looking to try and get some objectives back on the map. But right now, there's nothing really for them to take.
We can try to march into the base, but the death timers are ticking slowly. Samex is nearly up right now, and G2 realize they can't get anything else. Unicorns can wipe some sweat off their brow that they didn't lose all of their Baron buffs. Xerxes still hanging on as he clears the wave down bottom.
But we're seeing, again, these mistakes from these European teams where they've only got 3 members here. Where is Exile? He's far too far away from the fight to really have much contribution. It's too late by the time that Expect is already on top of Samex and the damage has been done. Now Exile is the main damage dealer, and there's no one to peel for him. He can just easily get blown up by both Perks and Expect, and then sure, okay, you get onto the backline, but look at Sven, he's completely unharmed. There is no damage threats left that he has to worry about, and it is just this oversight. G2 made the mistake at first, UoL make exactly the same mistake, and it's just about coordination and being a setup for these objectives.
And now you've got a lot of gold infused into Perks, and not the only one. 725 now on this rise, and he's rocking himself 4 items. Getting his way to that full build. Scary late game rise, gonna be hard for the Unicorns to deal with. We saw them turn the game around, but they gave the lead right back up. It's 3,000 in favor of G2. Still be a while before the next Baron is available, but they're clearing Scuttle Vision on that side. Waves are pretty even, so Unicorns, they just need to not get collapsed on once again. G2, they're back in the driver's seat, but it took them a big fight to do it.
The thing is, if you're the Unicorns of Love, what you have to be mindful of is how easy it is for G2 to collapse onto you when you're trying to push onto these objectives. So when the Unicorns are setting up for a tower push, it is very easy for Expect to just throw out that hook, get a TP flank, maybe a Ryze route, maybe a Varus ultimate.
They
right?
got a lot of tools to lock them down.
Exactly, there's all this pick potential on the side of G2 where if you're just slightly out of step, they can catch you off guard. But the Unicorns, they have great engage tools, so G2 just have to maintain good vision control. But when you look at the map, it is entirely red favored right now. The Unicorns have done such a great job of controlling a lot of the entrances to G2 jungle, and it is enabling them to get these engages onto G2 where they don't have answers to countering it.
But it was G2 trying to force something there. Mithy stepped a little far forward and honestly got a face full of command attack. Unicorns baiting and waiting. It's going to be another minute and 15 before Baron hits the Rift. The Dragon, similar story, but it's only a Cloud Drake. Unicorns have 2 Infernals. That is definitely helping them out in these fights. Extra 16% AD and AP coming to bear against this big team. G2 working their way up to their final items right now.
And a lot of big items have been completed. When Xerxes gets that Guardian Angel completed, he's going to be even more obnoxious for Sven.
And they have the Cosmic Gradients too. I mean, there's a lot of invulnerability to go around.
Like, these team fights are exciting, right? It's very back and forth, but it very much depends on who gets that initiation. Because if it's the Unicorns of Love, then you're going to get that 2-3-man shockwave, which will swing things in their favor. But if it's G2 and they're able to break the fight apart, they're able to split off Exile from the rest of his team, that's when it can very easily go in G2's favor. So here comes the TP.
He's gonna look for the flank right now. Expect the rest of G2, they know they need to run. They've caught Expect, throw him in with the shockwave, but they have a redemption. In comes the Cosmic Radiance. Exile is gonna be flashing out just in time for it to come and perks around the side. Rampage kill onto Samix. G2 react with ferocity rarely seen. A double kill for Perks. He is rolling, and once again, Chachi caught in the middle of it all. Sven's gonna take another. It's only Hilly left alive, and G2, they're hungry for the base.
It is the Unicorns that try to force the fight, but this time, G2 were ready. Hylissang, he's gonna try and buy time for his base, but I don't think it's gonna be enough as G2 break down the doors of the Unicorns of Love base.
It has been back and forth, teeter-tottering for a while, but G2, they have the quicker reaction time, and they get themselves an inhibitor. Flashing forward, Expectus says, that's okay, I'll tank the base. With no Unicorns left, Hylissang's not going to get back in time, and he has absolutely no backup. There is nothing stopping G2 from taking a huge statement. Game number 1 over the Unicorns of Love.
Things were looking very clean for G2 early on into that game. But as it progressed, the Unicorns, they fought back, and they fought back hard. They made it very difficult for G2 to be able to close things out. But one small mistake in the bottom lane resulted in G2 finding an avenue back into the game. Perks on that Ryze was so strong. And then in that final team fight, the big thing that really enabled G2 to win it was because both Samix and Exile, they flashed out of hitting ult. They didn't get that invulnerability. They didn't have the immunity to find some window to come back into the game. And they ended up getting punished for it.
And that is sometimes the breakdown in communication when you have a team that is, brought in a few newer members. Sometimes in those hectic moments, you don't always do it. We'll have to see what's coming up next. We're heading to a quick break as the Unicorns are going to be licking their wounds against G2, looking for a win in Game 2.